Episode 1. Before you can steward the world, you must steward your own behavior. The Garden of Eden had barely begun as paradise before freedom turned disastrous. There were no laws, no institutions, no system for restraint. Every whim was acted on by any means. As corruption spread, the scripture records God's grief. I will destroy man whom I have created. Are people really that bad? Well, yes, they really are. Welcome to Hell is a Latitude-Longitude. The physical world places us at a latitude-longitude, while our daily choices quietly place us on an emotional grid. In this episode, we return to Eden, not as a myth, but as a design. The narrative of stewardship is rooted in the biblical account of the Garden of Eden, where the concept of freedom was intertwined with the consequences of human actions. The world was not fixed, responsibility was not removed, and stewardship is the only way to change your latitude-longitude coordinates. Know where behavior takes you, because direction always comes before destination. From innocence to stewardship. Initially, Adam's innocence shielded him, but following the fall, he transitioned to stewardship, facing the reality of choices and their repercussions. This highlights the importance of individual behavior in shaping one's emotional and moral landscape. Adam had to decide which door to open and which door to slam shut. The eye of reason was awakened. Man has now become one of us, knowing good and evil. Adam was not merely a man. He was the original psyche. The name Adam functions both individually, a human being, and collectively, mankind. Its Hebrew root, Adama, means earth, binding humanity to the dust from which it came and to which it returns. When the breath of life whispers your name, consciousness begins. This entrance onto earth as a person is the beginning of the conflict to tame the spirit. Adama, the earth, is the arena that becomes a testing ground, a place where wrongful conduct is praised, admired, normalized for consumption. Why do consequences exist? When behavior steps away from moral standards, it does not immediately fail. Instead, perception dulls, sensitivity weakens, and discernment fades. The body is the bridge to survival. The soul is the link to immortality. Both require care, and that upkeep is called stewardship. If Adam had never been free, he would have never failed. After the fall, the world did not stop for Adam to jump off. Instead, time was extended for wisdom to take hold and for behavior to redeem. Consequences translates action into lived understanding. Taming the spirit is the only way to stop destruction from reoccurring. Consequences serve a critical learning tool. They are not merely punitive, but are essential for personal growth and understanding. If all consequences vanished, so would learning, transformation, and self-worth. If every harmful action were instantly erased, choice would become symbolic and obedience meaningless. A world without consequences would be rigged. Consequences prove your decisions are real. Otherwise, nothing you choose would matter. Reality cannot be taught from a book because you do not know something is dangerous until a cost is felt. Without results, the same errors would repeat endlessly because nothing would ever register. The real mercy of consequences change behavior, and that is what interrupts destructive momentum. Pain becomes a moment of awakening that says, stop, look, something is misaligned. Choose again. Without that signal of distress, destruction would quietly continue. Consequences expose what we actually value. Every decision casts a vote, not of what you say you want, but what you value the most. When pressure shows up, what you prize is what you protect, pursue, and obey. And you always pay a price for what you value. People only tolerate consequences on things they value more than the cost. Stay in the draining relationship. You value familiarity more than peace. If you keep numbing, you value relief more than clarity. The nervous system will not repeatedly pay for something not truly valued. More importantly, consequences expose the real hierarchy of what you value the most. Values are not flat. When two values collide, behavior exposes which one sits higher. Consequences mark the collision point that tells you this is the one you chose. When a consequence happens, don't say, why is this happening to me? Instead, ask, what value did I just defend? Then ask, would I still choose this value if I had to keep paying this price? Ask, what belief led me here? The question is a doorway to change. God does not abandon us to consequences. He collaborates with us through them. Another important function of consequences is it calls us back toward truth instead of being the end of the story. Consequences are usually the turning point, and that helps us to avoid the next shipwreck. What is stewardship? Stewardship is self-repair through alignment with principles that reliably produce the best dividends. Every motive carries a hidden cost. For instance, fear drains energy, and control isolates. As a steward, you identify a leak before it causes damage. You look for something you didn't know you wanted, to fix something you didn't know was broken. Stewardship cooperates with the system's design. Look for a motive that tilts toward the negative side of the pole. Ask yourself, what are you defending? And what is the cost? Stewardship is internal management. That precedes external repair. And motive quietly determines everything downstream. Truth becomes something worth seeing. Examine what causes external pressure. Question if a troublemaking motive is linked to an old survival strategy. One great benefit of stewardship is, after a while, you will begin to trust your own direction. 8 tools of stewardship. 1. Behavior is the steering wheel. You are always steering by action or inaction. You may not always feel your motive, but you can always see your behavior. Behavior turns the steering wheel when you speak. The wheel turns when you stay silent. Overreaction is a hard yank, and avoidance is drifting in the current. You are always steering even when you deny responsibility. In stewardship, you first have to see. Truth is a source of illumination. Taking control of your behavior is course correction. Act calm before you feel calm. And get accustomed to accepting the hard truth about yourself. Choose restraint over justification, for the ego is always overcompensating for misguided direction. It is all about the small micro turns. One step can change an entire journey. If repeated behavior produces tension, that means the steering is wrong, even if your ego gently nudges with, "Oh, you're fine." That puffy ego is easy to identify because it is always right. Wisdom is the one that questions. Ask yourself daily, how did I respond? And what did I respond to? Then question the why. These questions turn unconscious drifting into conscious navigation. You have to catch your deception as it acts out. Trap illumination before it blinks. Capture insight while it is still fully alive before it fades or gets rationalized away. 2. Motive is the engine. Motives operate beneath awareness, while behavior operates in public. Stewardship begins with what can be seen. Upgrading a motive means to pause instead of snap. Small corrections change the entire journey. You are not trying to control the ocean, only the moment you are sailing on it. Number 3. Habit is the rudder. A rudder does not create movement. It channels the movement that already exists, like wind, currents. The engine power are already pushing the ship. The rudder simply says this way, not that way. You can turn the wheel once and feel change. But your habit, the rudder will decide where you actually end up. Habit is the mechanism below the surface that holds your long-term heading, even when you're not watching. The reason people with good intention still drift is because their habits were never reset. Readjusting the habit will influence your direct control. But first, you must correctly diagnose which habit needs to be changed. And before that happens, you must identify what behavior links to the particular habit. And before that, you must trap the beam of light before it blinks off, because you will forget. Name it, write it down. Habits are how yesterdays keep touching tomorrow. Emotions light up the instrument panel, be it fear, desire, anger, anxiety. Emotions cannot navigate. Without suppressing emotion, first diagnose the fuel source, then trace it backward. Fear taught by parents is a threat-based motive, disguised as a survival strategy. Fear can be fueled by healthy self-preservation or corrosive actions. Same emotion with two different dimensions. Emotion is the noise that behavior decides to do something about. You cannot stop emotion from arising, but you can decide whether to obey it. The surveyor listens, checks the gauges, then turns the wheel. 5. Principles are the currents. Principles are not newly invented rules. They are real forces you enter, whether you acknowledge them or not. Principles are already moving quietly, constantly, beneath the surface of life. You don't choose whether you are being carried, only which current you step into. When you align with a moral principle, it becomes an efficient movement. Your effort produces fruit. Peace replaces friction, and progress compounds quietly. If you fight the current, you pay the cost with chronic tension. You cannot see a current directly. You see its effects. The most important thing about current is they lead somewhere. They have direction. Study the emotion, then ask, which principle does this reflect? What price am I paying? You cannot say I have integrity unless you are truthful with every comment. If someone asks, how are you doing? And you say, good, when you are not, your integrity gauge is broken. Scripture functions as a navigational chart because it tells you where you are. It names realities before collapse. Scripture does not stop the waves, remove storms, or calm the sea. Instead, it tells the truth about how the sea works. Scripture does three things internally: shows fixed reality, reveals danger zones, and provides proven routes. Scripture passages are immovable realities. Pride erodes relationships, and deception collapses trust. Scripture names these realities in the same way as a chart names reefs and currents. You are free to ignore them, but you will never be free from their effects. Truth comes to us through revelation rather than being created. Scripture warns of damage before it is felt, by naming the risk before impact. This path seems right, but ends in ruin. Unchecked appetite will enslave. They are advance notices. Ignoring them does not make them false. It only delays the lesson. Scripture defines moral geography, exposes hidden currents, and warns of unseen danger. It confirms direction through lived truth and leads the traveler away from delusion and toward the light. You navigate by a truth that has been verified through experience. You do not need to memorize the whole map. You only need to ask, what is the next step I take? 7. Jesus, a sonar in the fog. Sailors do not stop moving when visibility disappears. They change how they perceive. They shift from sight to instruments. Jesus is truth in motion when sight fails. A signal in the fog. His echo helps to navigate around obstacles. Fog is human limitation, uncertainty, fear, trauma, conflicting voices, and incomplete information that can blind. Without orientation, you won't know if you are upside down. Jesus walks both sides of life, the holy and the human. Trust him. Jesus is a fixed external reference, even when the truth is uncomfortable. You can lie to an instrument or yourself, but sonar still reveals what is out of view. You can rush past that reading, but you own the error. When visibility fails, orientation matters most. Jesus is a truth in motion sonar out of view. He does not promise calm seas, just stays with you while you are still moving through the fog. 8. God is the compass. A compass does one thing flawlessly. It points to the true north, regardless of whether opinion, fear, or desire. A compass does not argue with the terrain or adjust because the ship wants a different heading. It simply aligns to an external, fixed reality. And in the spiritual world, north is aligned to God. God is a constant fixed standard by which behavior is evaluated. God remains present, patient, and precise to allow consequences to teach what force never could. A compass does not judge the person using it. Instead, it simply shows the direction they are going. North is not arbitrary. People go awry when they try to reinvent their own north, and travel goes askew if the map legend is read upside down. Freedom without direction is drift, and north exists whether you like it or not. You either feel aligned or misaligned. Each of these tools answer a different question, and each one applies a different method. When stacked correctly, direction becomes unavoidable. You do not have to know the whole map. You just need to know the next step. Because direction is chosen long before the destination is reached. Thank you for listening. This is Dan Santalucia